Hello, everyone. Welcome to Level Up with Sam Bala. Today, we are joined by a true game changer in skincare and wellness, Dr. Howard Murad, known as the father of modern wellness. Dr. Murad is a world renowned dermatologist, entrepreneur, author, and an artist. At 50, he founded Murad Skincare, transforming the beauty industry with his groundbreaking work in cellular hydration and skin health. But his journey wasn't always smooth. He faced setbacks, legal challenges, and even reinvented himself as an artist after an eye surgery. Today, we dive into his failures, resilience, and what keeps him pushing forward. Dr. Murad, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you today.
Thank you. Dr. Murad, before we talk about your success, can you share a moment in your journey where you faced a significant failure and how did that shape you?
Oh, a significant failure was being 100% bankrupt financially, um, and feeling had nowhere to go. I had to put my house up on the taxes and things like that. It was a very challenging period, and I didn't know where to go from there, but I managed somehow.
Right. When you is that when you started this business, you faced this setback or before that?
This is a sit back, yeah, because um, I had uh, I had a product that I knew was working really well because I had seen it on thousands of my patients, and thought I would make it available to the general public. And having no experience in anything other than dermatology and medical care and seeing my patients. Um, so I dedicated what I thought was a lot of money, but it wasn't enough. And eventually, I actually went bankrupt and financially, and almost nowhere to go. Um, Yet I believed in myself. I knew that this was excellent. I had seen it with my patients, and somehow I worked my way back and repaid my debts, and gradually was able to start a business at new. And actually, it was a good thing because I learned a lot of lessons on the way up that I had no idea that would be so
Mm,
hard. But I managed, and it went from there. It just skyrocketed. It just went right up. Um, Fortunately for me.
how did you build that resilience in you? It's not an overnight thing, but I just want to understand that journey in you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can give you an exact answer. Um, I just actually believed I was going to do it, and it was a challenge. I had never faced anything
Mm,
quite like it before. Um, I have a saying: "Fear of failure leads to failure." So I was feeling failure, but I was not feeling failure. I knew I had something I could do. I knew I could try again. I knew I wanted to make it happen. And I knew it'd be helping not only me, but all my patients and all the people that use the products. And I just, I just felt like I was going to make it happen no matter what, even if I had to just drink water and tea for a week to pay for my bills. I wanted to to make it happen.
right. You started Murad Skincare at 50, when many would hesitate to take such a big risk. What drove you to take that leap?
Well, again, it was kind of the same thing that we're just talking about now. Um, Believing in myself, and I think if you compare me to somebody else, I have a saying: fear of failure leads to failure.
Mm.
So I could be feeling failure, but I didn't want to feel it. I felt like I had something within me that I could make available. And it was not only available for me to sell a lot of product and things like that, but to help society, to help my patients have better products. So it was a way of feeling that I was kind of making. You know, I knew I was going to do it,
Mm.
but anyone else suffering that much failure would say, "My gosh, I give up. I go back to my just do my practice, and I would uh, build up and then
Yep.
pay off my bills, and I would go from there." But I knew I had more in me. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to be able to help society. I knew I had something.
Now, I was listening to one of your interviews, and there you mentioned about cultural stress. And in order to overcome that, you said everyone has to become a toddler and they have to awake the toddler in them. Do you want to set some light on cultural stress and how it's affecting in today in mankind today?
Okay, yeah. In my mind, cultural stress started probably in the early 1980s with the what we called the smartphones then at
Mm.
the time. So technology brought us together, and what it's done to us without us thinking about it, it's changed the way we live. It made us have a more sedentary lifestyle. Um, we 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 don't we used to in the past at least go shopping at the grocery store or go for a walk. But now we just sit home and we wait all of our foods delivered, and it gets delivered in plastic boxes, so we don't even have to wash dishes. And after we do that, we turn on our TV or
Mm.
whatever we have to watch it, and sit and eat hot dogs and French fries and anything you can think of that's basically not healthy.
That's what I
And
do.
well, that's not good. But and before you know it, you're there for 4 hours, five
Mm.
hours, binge watching. Don't realize it. We used to have physical friends, but we don't have time for them anymore. So we used to have multiple. We had few friends. Now we have multiple friends, but we never see them. They're it's not physical. Um, we're working 14-hour days. And we in the past we had the 8 hours, but somehow or other we kept on. We had to do more and more of that. We're becoming more lonely and isolated,
Mm.
and isolation leads to all kinds of disease. It's worse than cigarette smoking. Um, it's a whole picture of what's beginning to happen to our society, and it's only probably going to get worse. They're not. We won't need each other so much. All kinds of things. And I can imagine what's happening 5 years from now or 10 years from now would be, who knows, with AI and all of
Mm.
that's going on, imagine what's going to be. So it's the stress of modern living. It's constant, pervasive, ever increasing. It's not going to get any better, but we have to understand what it is and we have to begin to challenge it, and we have to make sure we do a few steps of walk every day, make sure we eat more vegetables, make sure um, we connect with people and have friends where we can physically meet them occasionally.
Mm.
um, um, Eating, make it instead of easy processed foods, try to some vegetables and things like that. That's going to make a difference. But cultural stress is the stress of modern living, and we don't even realize how much it's changing our lives. You can ask virtually anybody, when was the last time you physically went for a walk with a friend? And when was the last time you actually went to a show with a friend and talked about it afterwards instead of just sitting at home and binge watched. Um, and you don't even realize it's this thing that was just happened, and it's the most deleterious thing that could ever happen to us, and we don't realize it.
Oh, okay. It's kind of telling. I'm getting some five fingers on my face at the moment, telling I should wake up and start doing it. It's more of.
Well, all of us. You're not the only one. You know, and life balance is terrible.
Mm,
You know, I ask patients at work, how many hours a day are you literally on your CTV on the infomercial or actually even at just work work itself? The average has gone up too in a lot of places. But I asked people at work how many hours a week that you are looking at the screen, and it's 14 to 16 hours a day for the average person at work. At my work, anyway. Maybe others are different, but I know wherever it is, it's a lot more than it was 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago.
mm, that's thank you for that. And you also mentioned about that we should wake up the toddler in us. And why is that? How important is that?
Oh my gosh! So, okay, what was make believe you're a toddler?
Yep.
How many times did you haul before you started to walk? 100,000,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yet, when if we fell and we could be on crutches or whatever, and for us to learn to walk again, it may not happen. We break a hip or something like that, it may not happen. Um, when you were a toddler, you were so cute. You were cute. Everyone wanted to pick you up and hug you and kiss you. Now you don't even touch the baby. It's not, you know, there's no physical connection at all. When you
Mm,
were a toddler, you're not afraid to ask questions. Why is the sky blue? And things like that. And we assume that if somebody else knows, but we don't ask. Things like that that begin to happen. They talk about the inner child, and the inner child is that child that had all that potential that I'm just talking about. And and most of us come through that real well. But those times when you were crying and things were bothering you and you were told not to worry about it and things like that, which we sometimes ignore in a toddler, um, comes back and we don't realize we're leaving some of that. So we society as a whole has changed to my view 180 degrees without realizing it. And the
mm.
toddler can teach us if we could go back to the time when we were not afraid when we were not afraid to fail. You know, how many times did you try to get up and you began to crawl and then you began to walk? How many times were you not afraid to ask a question? Things like that we don't realize.
I got the answer. How come you're so active and still pushing forward at the age of 85? I mean, you still have the toddler in you, which is wide awake.
We all have a toddler in us, but it depends on it's a way looking at for us to try to return that toddler, the one that's happy and not the one that's, you know, even then you have on the version of people who are toddlers who even from the time they're born sometimes there seems like there's a
Mm.
problem, but most of the time it is, and most of the time we 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 don't do what we thought we could do. We don't do what our potential goes.
Yep. I will start working on it after this interview.
Okay,
Now,
don't worry. I think you look what you're doing. is what we're talking about. You should do because you created something from zero,
Yep.
and you work on it, and you're dealing with the stresses of it, and not sitting at home and eating hot dogs and French fries
Yeah.
and fried foods, things like that.
Now, my wife is a bit careful on that. She makes sure everyone in the family there's a bit of a balance. We don't overdo it with junk foods. So that is
Hmm.
something Sammy takes care of it. My next question is, Dr. Murad, you have written about hydration and wellness extensively. What's one common health mistake people make that you wished they knew?
One thing, um, well, on a physical sense, um, I think we should be eating more vegetables. I tell people eat your water instead of drinking it. When you drink a glass of water, it goes right through you into the toilet. But if you eat a vegetable, um, it takes a while to digest, and in the vegetable there are all kinds of phytonutrients and things like that. So what you're getting there is nutrients that your body needs, um, and you're getting the hydration that you also need, but you get them both together. And also, and I don't tell people exactly what to eat because they should ask their doctor. But there's one word called lecithin. Lecithin is comes in various forms as herbs and would be in a powder form and different forms, and it's generally available. But what it does, and it's hard to explain it on a medical basis, but it shows that it strengthens the cell walls, and our cells walls, as we get older, become thinner and become more porous, and we begin to lose water out of our cells, and it strengthens the walls. Other things do that too. This is just one thing that you could add as a drink in powders, and comes in different forms. Um, but the idea of hydration um, is very critical, and we have to be careful about what we do. We should be eating more of our water.
Mm.
The one disease we have is aging, which age with no matter what gender you have, you're going to be your skin's going to be drier. You can feel it, but every cell in your body is becoming drier. And if there are things that you can do to make them less dry, you'll live longer and be healthier. I measured my patients. We certainly published an article about aging and water, looking at the average person, the women, the female gender. They have about less strength in their cell membranes, and they're having less water in their skin. You could see it. You feel an average female versus an average male, and for whatever reason. Um, and then if the strength in your cells is weak, you're more likely to have bad disease uh, like and hypertension, cancer, things like that. Um, so encouraging every cell in your body to be stronger and resistant to damage, whether it's a disease or anything else. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't. And just a minor modification in your diet, if nothing else, eat your water instead of drinking it. When you drink it, the water goes right through you. The only exercise you get is to walk to the bathroom. But otherwise, eating your water-rich foods are healthier for you. And you might look up lecithin as one. I know if I give a talk, sometimes that people say, I only remember one thing. One thing you might consider is the word lecithin Um, and you can read about it in any book or any journal on nutrition.
Right. Now you just mentioned about remembering one thing at a time. I'm going to pick your brain to understand. Nowadays, people say they can multitask, and because they have technology, they have gadgets. What are your thoughts on multitasking versus single tasking?
Um, that's a hard one. I think it's a personality. If it's
Mm,
your personality that you need to be motivated to keep moving, um, there's nothing real bad about multitasking if you if it actually is helping you and you know that it's making a difference. If you're doing it just to think that, you're going to become exhausted and be unhappy. You're being forced to do things that you don't feel like you want, and in a way, it's becomes detrimental. It goes the other way.
right. You have faced legal challenges in your journey. How did you navigate those moments, and what did they teach you about resilience and leadership?
Well, Orbis, divorce is a is something, and it's more personal. I did go through divorce, and it was a very challenging period in my time. Um, and in retrospect, in my case, it was something that turned out to be, in total, at the end, a better thing that happened. It was uh, not something that um, I mean, I would have preferred not to, but it worked out to be my benefit because uh, I was able to grow through that challenge and actually live a life that I think was much better for me.
Right. Looking back, do you think starting later in life gave you an advantage, or do you wish you had done it earlier?
If I had to pick only one, I would pick later.
Later, okay.
Um, I see people today, many of us after the age of 80 or 85 or whatever, um, we begin to be more frail, more likely to have medical problems, things like that. So, and you look back and you say, "Gee, I wish I had enjoyed myself more."
Mm,
Then, so that's sort of where I am today. Not today, but generally.
thank you. Now, this is the interesting part. When I was going through a journey, I found this part very fascinating, and I was baffled. I'm very interested to know your mindset on that. After your eye surgery, you became an artist. What sparked the transition, and how has art influenced your life?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I Somebody asked me when I was 50 years old, um, did did you do art? I said, no, I don't. I'm not an artist. I'd never done any art. My wife at the time said we were at the resort and they were giving an art class. And she said, let's go to the art class. I said, oh, I'm not art. I don't like it. I don't do anything. And she said, look, we're here. Let's do it. So finally, we walk in, and the teacher handed us paper and different coloring things. And I just sat and just I thought was just scrabbling on the art sheet. And the teacher at the end of the class come up to me and she said, "Please don't take any more art classes." I said, "Oh my gosh, did I do something so bad that you had to tell me I couldn't do it anymore?" She said, "No, you have a talent that you don't realize you have, and you really should look into art."
Hmm.
I said, "Okay." Then as time fell on, we left the resort, went home, life went on. I never thought about anything except she asked me to buy some equipment like coloring paper and things like that, and I had purchased it, but left it aside. In the fullness of time, I had a retinal detachment, and I put my chin and my head on the pillow, looking down. I couldn't really eat well. I couldn't shave so well for almost a month, and I started painting, and it became a thing that, to me, it would make things more beautiful. I became um, I became so involved in my art, and it's my own. It's not. I didn't try to be somebody else's or create similar to what other. If you look at my art, it does, to my mind anyway, it doesn't look like anything else. But it was really really brought me to see color and brightness and things like that. So the art was so enlightening to me. I have not sold any of the art pieces, but I've donated them to different places, um, and there actually is a place called Vista Del Mar in Los Angeles where I live, um, where most of my art, or much of my art, is available to see,
Wonderful.
and also in my books where I have pictures of the art.
Oh, wow. And which all the books you've written, they got pictures of your art, or is it any specific books?
Um, I have some specific books with uh, with art, my art in them. I'm not sure how much of them are left available. I'm in the process of writing a, a new book, which will have what I think is the most beautiful of the art that I have, and it'll take some time, but hopefully before the end of this year, I'll have the book out showing
Cool.
my art and also my sayings. I call them insights, and studying my patients, I learned from them, and I learned from my patients about overall health.
I'm looking forward to it. Um, do you think success comes at a cost? If so, what has been the biggest cost in your journey?
There may be a cost, but there's a benefit, and I always look at the positive instead of the negative. I think we always can complain about something every day, every minute. We could complain, but I try to look at the positive each time, and I think if I could recommend that to anybody, it would. That's what I would say to them.
Right. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone who's starting over at 50, whether in business or personal growth?
I would say ignore the naysayers. You say, "What do you mean?" I say, because people come up and tell you, "Well, you're too old. You can't do it. Nobody's been able to do it for you. How come you're going? It's not something that you should be doing. You should be doing something else." But there are two naysayers, those other people,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's you, who is also saying, and maybe I can't do it. So ignore yourself, ignore the naysayers, it, as well as you, when you're the naysayer.
So just take the leap of faith and do it.
Yeah,
Yeah. At what point in your journey did you feel I've made it? Or do you still feel like there's more to achieve?
there's always more to achieve. I would,
I,
I'd love to do more of my research and publish some more of the articles about cultural stress and the hydration story that we just started on. And, I still in the process of biting that book. I hope it'll come out within a year. Um, and also the looking at the future and makes a big difference.
right. My last question. I know given we are running out of time, if you had to pass down 3 life lessons to the next generation, what would they be?
3
Life lessons to the next generation.
life lessons. Well, I mentioned 2. Fear of
Yeah.
failure leads to failure. Um, Ignore the naysayers. And I think, in a way, not for everybody, but so much more of us are seeking perfectionism, and it become impossible to be perfect. And it's very challenging. You see people more and more trying to be perfect
Hmm.
and being unhappy. So be imperfect, live longer.
Make sure the house is a mess. Don't make sure it's always clean. That's what my wife keeps saying. Messy house is a
No,
happy house with
okay.
the kids running
Well,
around.
if it makes you happy, then you do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No,
it's hard to be perfect. It's
no.
impossible, and
Yeah,
that's a challenge.
because the earth is not perfect. We are not perfect, so we can't achieve perfection.
Yeah, I
Look,
can. I tell you one thing about the chat that from my mother. We were not very rich. We were poor, and my mother had a Singer sewing machine, and she knew how to sew hems and things like that. But she was never perfect. So most of the time, she did a great job. When she went to a store and she says, "I do hems and things like that," and she would have a job. Um, but once in a while, she'll have one hem down here, the other one's up there, really imperfect. And even in her cooking, some days the food was burned, and sometimes it was this and that. And she'd also say, "You know what? It's a little off, but it's okay. It'll be good. Oh, the food's salty. Oh yeah, a little bit, but it's okay. Next time we'll put in less." And she she was not perfect, but she lived life better. And she basically did cook mostly well. She did do the sewing, but was definitely not looking to be perfect. And in respect, maybe I learned a little bit of that lesson from her.
right. And what did your dad say when her cooking was imperfect? Was he honest in giving the feedback, or was he just covering it up?
He just
The,
he just went with it, whatever. He never
that's what
complained.
all husbands do, I think.
That's probably true.
Because you need to have food for the next day. So it's just zip your lips and eat
That's
whatever
true.
is served on the table. Look, Murad, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful chat, and thank you for joining and sharing your insights and life lessons to us.
Okay, really wonderful being with you.
Thank you.
Stay healthy and stay happy.
Cool.